Comes down to four words. Four words.
Okay.
The art of differentiation. The bottom line is we live in a noisy world. We must be real.
Why is branding important regardless of how product is?
Are we introducing an evolution? Question number one. Or are we introducing a revolution? Do not sell solutions. Help people manage problems. I talked about the three phases of branding. And the interesting thing is that most companies do only just two of them, but they think that that's all of them, and they're wrong. AI can easily result in a lot of brands. Right now, there's what I call a lot of AI slop. S-L-O-P, slop. You can't be so in love with your own product or service.
Branding isn't your logo. It's not your marketing. It's your differentiation. Today I'm joined by David Brier, a 45-year branding expert, author of Brand Intervention. We break down the real difference between branding and marketing, how to stand out in a noisy market, and why most founders get brand strategy completely wrong. Stay until the end. You'll walk away knowing how to position your brand so customers don't choose you because you're cheaper. They choose you because you're different. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app and YouTube. If something resonates with you, drop a comment and share your thoughts. I would love to hear your perspective. And now, enjoy the conversation. Welcome, David. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great. So, since we're talking about branding today, I wanted to start simple and ask you what branding is.
Beautiful question. Okay. Well, the basic thing is that branding, well, let me give context to that so that way listeners can really get an idea. So about 9 years ago, after doing branding for 35 years, I've been doing this for 45 years, I decided to write a book because I had good success. Clients were winning, projects were going well. And when I started my book, there were a considerable amount. There were thousands and thousands of books already written on the topic of branding. If you were to now go today, if you or I were to go to Amazon and look and say branding under books, we would have over 25,000 books on branding. 25,000. And the craziest part, when I started writing my book, Brand Intervention, at the time, there was not a single agreed upon definition with all these books. Like, you got to be kidding. They all, this was valid, this was good, this was fine, good, fine. But could we all come to a point of this is what branding was? And so I didn't find one. And so I basically took that upon myself. Comes down to four words.
Okay.
The art of differentiation. Branding is the art of differentiation. Because, and now let's take that from an abstract idea and let's break it down. The art of differentiation, to whom, for whom? We have to know who are we targeting to understand and be able to tell the difference between what we're offering and all the other offers, right? So we need to understand people. And so that's the whole thing with branding, is that we're taking something, this little universe of a product or a service or a company, and exporting it, throwing it out into that wild ocean of noisy ocean of offers, of choices. And you and I have to be able to come to some decision. Otherwise we go, I don't know. We kind of either throw a dart, or we decide which is cheapest, or the color we like best, or it becomes random. So the only way for a company, an entrepreneur, an individual, an innovator to be able to kind of plot their way and choreograph, they need to know, one, this definition of branding, which is the art of differentiation. And secondly, they've got to know people. And for most of my 45 years, the way I knew people was, early on, I ended up, I actually ran across this book Dianetics, which to me, I was very insightful to understand people. I found that it was called the modern science of mental health, and I wasn't looking at it from the standpoint of, for me, it wasn't like, okay, mental health as much as understanding people. And so between those two things, knowing why we're doing branding and understanding people, those are the core things of what branding is about.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about price. It's not about like where to spread the word about. It's just actually the thing, how different it is from everything else in the world, how unique it is, and what people, how to attract people basically with that, who will like that.
That's correct. Well,
Yeah.
let's look at it this way, because if it were price, that would mean that the only things that ever got purchased were the cheapest. So
Right.
that's not the valid thing. We also have examples of, like, you take boutique or premium brands that sell high priced items all the time, and people want that. We don't ever see somebody walking into an Apple store and saying, "What's the cheapest one you got?" Right? We
Right.
want that color, that size, that much memory. Here's my credit card. I don't even ask what the price is anymore. I just go, there it is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, can we differentiate or maybe identify some qualities of marketing versus branding so people have like a distinct picture and difference?
Beautiful. Beautiful question. Because those two words are not interchangeable. They're related, but they're not interchangeable. Branding, it allows us to own the lane that someone can tell the difference between what we're offering and the other options available. The goal, so in an organization, branding comes first, and then that's followed by marketing, which now knows how to communicate, get those offers out there, present those stories. I mean, let's take a look at a Steve Jobs keynote. That was the perfect marriage of branding and marketing, because obviously he was one of the most brilliant in terms of that product launch, introducing an innovation, introducing a disruption. And but that was the handoff. Literally, we were seeing in real time, we were seeing, okay, it starts out with, here's this new innovation we're bringing, and it's like this, but unlike all this, here's its difference, and now here are the different features and benefits, et cetera, where when you start getting into the features and the benefits, then we're starting to talk about the marketing of that. Marketing is a verb, and branding is also a verb, but marketing is very much, it's an action part of the organization. We're getting the offers out. We're getting it on the radars of people. If we solely did branding, we could have an incredibly distinct differentiation, but we now need to get it out into the world. That's the marketing portion.
Okay. And then some people may say, I have great product. I build this thing. It's beautiful. I don't need to do branding. All I need is just to put it on a shelf somewhere and people will love it and buy it. What is the mistake of doing this? Why is branding important regardless of how product is?
Well, I'll tell you exactly why. Because I do have these conversations with clients very often. And it's like, but David, we're better, we're this or we're that. I said, yeah. I said, and if I were to listen to every one of your competitors, they'd also tell me that they were better and different and thisser and thater and slimmer and faster and this, shinier and whatever. So the thing is that companies can easily confuse truth with the ability to stand out in the marketplace. Right? How do we stand out? Unless one's audience is incredibly telepathic, where they can psychically perceive the incredible awesomeness and the blood and the sweat and the tears that we have put into something. The bottom line is we live in a noisy world. We must be real. So the first point we must agree upon is that, do we exist in a noisy world? Yes, we do. Are there many options out there? Yes, there are. Now, sometimes a company or an entrepreneur or CEO may say, yeah, there are lots of options, but nobody compares to us. I said, well, yeah, then why is it that you sound just like everyone else? That's where it really comes in, because that's the problem. Because a company, but we're this or we're that, or will they offer you 12 of these? Well, we offer you 14 of these, and they offer 3 sizes, and we offer 7 sizes, and it's like, what? That's the quantity game. Branding is the quality play. How does someone instantaneously go, whoa, you're not playing, this product or service is not playing to the same old rules, right? It's like, why did Dyson, the vacuum cleaner, after 50, 60, 70 years of no one changing the vacuum cleaner, all of a sudden they come out and they have the turbine design, and they're using colors, they're using materials, they're using all of this, and all of a sudden it was because of these differentiators, we could see, oh, literally practically overnight, everyone else became history because they came out and they used differentiation at every point of contact, how it looked, how it sounded, how it showed the dirt, rather than being this little suction device that basically had been around for half a century.
Yeah, I think many people mix up marketing with branding, because qualities of marketing is exactly that, like what can we offer to people, what we can sell people, and things like that, right? And the branding, I think, is actually how this thing is different from everything else. If it's like let's say cars, Mercedes, BMW, or whatever, they both drive people, but it's something not tangible that is different. Even if the price is the same and everything else is the same, it's like how you feel using this thing. And I also guess it takes a lot of time to get to that point and build it. So that's very interesting.
Well, the interesting thing to that point is that I have had companies, they come to me and they say, David, we need your help with our brand. And I look at what they've been doing. I look at all this money they've been spending on ads, ad spend, marketing, advertising, SEO, ranking, missing, that, and I say, well, the problem is you sound like everyone else. You're either playing, the most common mistakes is that companies are either playing the race to the bottom, which is, oh, a little bit cheaper, so it's the race to the bottom, or they're playing the race to the top, which is like, oh, they've got so many features, we have more. And we'll throw in this and we'll throw in that. So it's either the race to the top or the race to the bottom. Those are both the wrong races to play, because I've literally helped companies without them changing a dime in their marketing spend. I took a city as an example. There's a city that I was invited to brand, and I rebranded them. By just rebranding what their story was, their brand story, their overall offering, and how they were positioned and presented, we literally saw a 500%, 5 times increase in tourism in a year without them spending a single change in marketing dollars. It wasn't the marketing that changed. It was the actual brand story, how we positioned it. And even another client, it's like, they were impacted a lot by COVID. And they said, David, we need your help. And I looked at what they were doing, and we literally added 9 figures onto their revenue in 12 months without a single dime being spent more on marketing, just because we got the branding right. Because if you aren't nailed down on the branding, you're having the wrong discussions. You're addressing you're having the wrong types of discussions in the wrong rooms with the wrong people. But the best salespeople will be able to pivot and reframe. The best marketers will be able to do that. But only because you got a clear view on what you're doing with your branding.
I also hear people saying good branding versus bad branding. Can you explain the difference? What does it mean when they say that? And maybe you also have some qualities of how to build a good brand.
Yeah. Well, branding quite a few people, when they hear branding, they have the idea, well, that's something that big companies do. That's done by the Coca-Colas of the world. That's done by the big global companies. Untrue. Because let's get it back to where we started. What is branding? Branding is the art of differentiation. If I cannot tell the difference between what you're offering and what a competitor of yours is offering, here's what ends up happening. If we throw something into the market and it doesn't stand out, it doesn't differentiate, the client, the customer, they have an immediate reaction. If there's no obvious difference there, they want to get good value. The way they get good value, since obviously there's no obvious difference between these two, they say, well, which one's cheaper? Since there's no difference. Not because they're cheap, not because they're looking for a deal, they're looking for value. And if the company hasn't given you or I a reason to have value, like there's no obvious value. Like you take a look, let's take one of the most obvious brands that we all know, Liquid Death, the water. That's water in a can.
Right.
But because they talk differently, they are outrageous, they have a crazy sense of humor, they have crazy commercials, their language is different, it's fun, it's different. And they're not, you can't, is one thing I want everyone to get. If your listeners get one thing out of this whole thing, like they should get this. You can't sneak up on greatness. Don't take little itty bitty steps, to try and go, ooh, maybe we can sneak up and just take, be bold, have some conviction, have some courageousness, be willing to, and if you're gonna fail, take a big enough step to know that, that was the wrong step, that didn't have the impact we wanted, and now you learn fast. I'd rather you take a big step and know in 30 days that was the wrong step, rather than maybe taking little steps and spend 9 months or a year going, well, we're not sure, but we're trying to these little things, and it's too small. So you've got to go bigger, you've got to go bolder, and be willing to fail big, be willing to succeed big, stand for something with boldness, conviction. And then, first of all, it's a hell of a lot more fun. And it's more exciting, but you also learn faster.
Yeah, I think I remember a couple of stories, I guess, of how companies were trying to experiment with something and it hurts their brand. Like I remember a story of Coca-Cola. I think they experimented with new flavors in like 80s and it was a total failure. People hated it and they had big damage to the brand. And another one is Maserati, when they started to giving option of cheaper cars, and people were like, if I have $200,000-$300,000 for a car and somebody else paid only like 70, which is still a lot of money, like this is not the brand for me anymore. I'll go to Ferrari or something else. And I was curious, like from your experience, what motivates people to do these mistakes? Is it honest mistake or is it like miscalculation? How they do that? Why they do that?
They think, there's the concept of line extensions, right? There's the concept of, oh, maybe you can do, if, well, we own X amount of market. Well, then, even Apple made that mistake. They tried, it was about maybe 7 years ago. They tried like a cheaper, smaller plastic iPhone. It was a total failure. Totally. It was like, who are you selling to? This isn't bubble gum, right?
Yeah.
It was just a wrong move. So it's a failure to understand and appreciate when a brand really is dialed in. A brand has a set of values, right? Those values translate into what are the choices that we as a brand make? What's the lane that we own? How are we bringing those choices and those values to life by the things we say no to, as well as what we say yes to? So we're entrusted. People entrust. People don't come to me to design a small little cheap brand so that someone can sell 1 billion things for 2 cents. I'm not that guy. I'm not that
Mm-hmm.
person, right? I
Mm-hmm.
build high quality brands for all varieties of companies. And so it's not knowing, it's losing sight of the values that you stand for. Um, and that to me is so much of it. And too often brands are looked at from the standpoint of a merely cosmetic. How does it look? Oh, and it just becomes a choice, like lipstick or like a color of a tie. Oh, I like that tie. I'm glad you like that tie. And I'll be the first one to say to my client, I said, I don't care if you like this tie or not. I'm not selling to you. I'm selling to your customer, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
selling to your customer as the choice option compared to all these other choices they have. People have choices. People have options. We are the guardians of those set of values and why they keep choosing us for a particular package that they get, whether it's a technological package, whether it's a service, whether it's or even a type of music. It could be an entertainer. If an entertainer goes, off brand, and they go from, it's kind of like, what's the lane? What is that thing? Because if you own it and you've got the conviction, I use the word conviction a lot because it's such a great word. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
really have to be proud to stand in the shoes that you're in, and don't be apologetic, and don't try the little sneaking up on greatness. That is the worst approach.
Yeah, so what I gather from this is it's figuring out what the values you're gonna stick with, and try to do that. Be very stubborn and don't spread yourself thin, if you will. If it's about safety or quality, again, my analogy with cars, that's most familiar to me, or speed or whatever else, or luxury. So you can stick to that and don't try to get everywhere, right? However, we've seen examples when it actually worked out. For example, Honda, they originally produced motorcycles. In Japan, I think up to today, if you ask somebody for Honda, everybody think motorcycle, not car, unlike in the US. So it did work for them. So sometimes it happens. So I wonder, maybe it's because of different market or something. So
Yeah. I mean, I'd say there are brands that are great in different parts of the world, certain countries, and those products or
hmm
services are loved, and then they can't quite export to different places. There's been a number of attempts over the past decade. I'm not thinking immediately of those, but there have been a number of attempts. Brands that have been incredibly successful in the U.S. cannot export to Europe, right, or vice versa. So you go, okay, that's fine. So it's
yeah.
a set of values. There's a market. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. And then, um, so sometimes when people start a company and they have this great product, how long does it take them? What sort of investment, if you will, people should expect to put into branding to really set themselves as a different product on the market, especially if it's something different, something small like a startup.
Well, okay. There's to give an honest answer. First, it's going to depend on what is the degree of competition, the degree of existing noise,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, there may be a company or a few companies that dominate and own the majority of the market. Well, okay, what's it going to take to dethrone them, right? To actually
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, there's a new opportunity, because usually what happens when there are existing players, there's the way it's been done, and that goes on for a while. So you go, okay, so if are we introducing an evolution, question number one, or are we introducing a revolution?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. If it's an evolution, you're going to have to spend a lot more because you need to convince everybody that that matters.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is there's a revolution, but I want to pull that apart a little bit. Now that's about the product or the service, but here's the bigger question: can we make something happen now with what we're introducing to the market that used to take 5 steps and now it takes 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's speed. That's time. That's oh, wait a second. You mean I what used to take I maybe had to buy 2 or 5 products and now I can buy 1? You know?
Mm-hmm.
That's a revolution. Wow. Okay. Well, you need to be, depending on the amount of noise, is going to determine how much you need to invest to be heard and to be taken seriously. Now, if you can go a little, and that's looking at a very bigger market opportunity. If you're very, very specific, if you're like, hey, here's a really narrow market, very specific needs. The noise level, in terms of competition, not overwhelming. So if you can start narrow, you can spend less because you can be very, very targeted rather than, okay, wait a second, we have to go big and broad. So if someone has a startup, probably the best advice that I can give is, all right, who is the most underserved audience that we could be a hero to, that we tell them, by the way, here's the way you've been doing it. Here's the way it now can be done. Here's the outcome with us. Here's the outcome. And what's it take in terms of the time and the money for the old model versus the time and the money for the new model. And if you can go, here it is. It used to cost you $200 to do this. It now costs you $25 to do this. And that $25, there may be incredible margins there. And all of a sudden, and it may not be that big of a price difference. Maybe it might be, this cost you $100, but took you 20 hours to do. And now this costs you $85, but only takes you 2 hours to do. That's a no-brainer. You will actually be able to penetrate, and you can go to market really strongly, provided that you have a good brand story that differentiates and rapidly gets across that concept that what are you going to do with all that free time you now have? Where are you going to spend all that money that you now have in your pocket, that you now have with us, that you didn't have before? And you can actually have fun with that brand framing and that narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another concept I think that touches branding is storytelling. And I'm wondering, what's the role of storytelling in branding?
It is key. That would be like saying, like, what's the role of delicious sauces with Italian food? It's really important. I mean,
Okay.
it's key. You have to be able to tell a story. The greatest brands have great stories. Nike was Nike, but it was the story. It wasn't like that their product, their actual end physical product was so revolutionarily different, but it was the story they built around it. They were the first. When I was growing up, there was Keds was the brand of sneaker. There was Puma, there was Converse, and Adidas. Or as they say in Europe, I've been now corrected. It's Adidas. That's how they pronounce. That's how I found it. They pronounce
German,
it. It's only America. It's only America where we pronounce it Adidas. So it's Adidas. So the thing is that those 4 brands, right, were the ones I grew up with. But it wasn't until Nike, that storytelling, where we learned the magic of what was possible by the stories they told. And the same thing with Apple. I mean, look at how Apple defined it. I love this one line that they use, which is, instead of making people think like computers, we made computers that think like people. Right there's a storytelling right there. And you go, oh man, all of a sudden we've taken the entire tech industry, turned it 180 degrees on its head.
Yeah. I agree. I had a couple of people on the podcast talking about storytelling, and it comes down to having like a great skill to have for founders, for whoever is responsible for branding, even for like personal branding, right? It's the same kind of thing, how you differentiate yourself and being able to tell that story so people get attached to it. Yeah, that's great.
I'll even give you this additional example. About 2.5, 3 months ago, someone had asked me, like, David, what is it you do? Tell me what you do. They weren't familiar with me. And here's what I said. And here is storytelling and branding all brought together. My response was, I'm David Brier, the guy CEOs call when they've burned so much cash on marketing, their spouses think that they have a drug habit. I'm like rehab for your brand, except instead of getting you clean, I get you profitable. You could think of me as the Betty Ford Clinic of branding, with better ROI and no group hugs.
That's great.
You
Yeah.
go, okay, there it is, right? It immediately differentiates.
Yeah.
And the story. Boom.
And I think there is also a little touch of mystery, so people have to kind of imagine what will happen and expect that result in the future and say like, "Ooh, I want that. That sounds cool. I want that." Yeah.
Any brand that kind of raises us to a level of being curious, like saying, I want to know more. That's
Yeah.
good storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. I also wanted to touch upon AI. These days, everybody's talking about this, and maybe you hear of any cool products or cool ideas that people have and use AI for branding. Like ChatGPT, I think doesn't count because it's going to be like an average thing. But maybe you have some stories or some ideas how people can use it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the most important thing in my opinion with regard to AI. AI is a tool. AI is not a crutch. AI is not a replacement for our imagination. If AI is used such as, I would like to get some insights into XYZ faster than me manually searching through and going online and doing all this homework. Now, that's good. That would be like kind of like a digital intern. Please collect for me all of this stuff. And now you need to verify, is that accurate? Is that correct? Is that the right type of, did it look in the right places and ask the right things? So you got to verify, of course. But now that's fine. But now, okay, what's the level of ingenuity? Because AI can easily result in a lot of brands. Right now, there's what I call a lot of AI slop, SLOP, slop. Because what's happening is a lot of people are in a lot of companies using a lot of the same tools, which is reaching into the same ocean of information and coming out with a lot of these duplicative sets of data. That's not, and again, if we come back to what is branding? Branding is the art of differentiation. If I'm coming out with something that, oh, that's cool, I really like what ChatGPT gave me, or whatever one wants to use. I like what it came up with. I'm glad you like what it came up with. Now, does it meet the criteria of, does it differentiate? Is our voice unique? Is our voice getting diluted where we just are kind of now becoming interchangeable with our competitors, the options out there? That's the risk. So ultimately, we are the guardians of, are we differentiating? Are we getting the audience that we're talking to? Are we stirring their imagination? Are we provoking them to question? Because here's the one thing that I live by. People will not come to new conclusions based on old information. We are all in the new conclusion, the business of new conclusions. A prospect, a prospective client or a prospective customer must come to a new conclusion if they're going to become a client of ours. They can't just go, oh, okay, fine, I'll pick you, blah, 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 blah. No, we've got to be in control enough to help them and to steer them to the better solution. And it's not going to happen by giving them a regurgitation of the same old information. How do we reframe and have a new discussion so that we can come to a new conclusion and bring about new curiosity, new optimism, and a hope for a better outcome that they didn't have before they spoke to us. And if we have not achieved that, no amount of AI is going to be able to help us. We have got to be the ones to demand that of ourselves.
Yeah, I think the more I talk to people, the more it comes back that even though we call it artificial intelligence, it's actually not really that intelligent, right? Like I remember 20 years ago when I went to university, one of my professors told me that, who do you think is the dumbest thing in this room? And everybody is like looking at each other thinking it's people. And then he said, no, this is a computer, because it's dumb. It doesn't know anything. You have to give it instructions all the time. And I think now with AI, it's kind of similar thing, because it all knows a lot of history about us, but it can't like imagine new things, like you said. And that's a big failure when people trying to rely on it and come up with anything. And I get burned by this all the time myself, trying to do something and come up with ideas, and then I see all this ordinary stuff it gives me. I'm like, no, I gotta, go for a walk and come up with something.
That's right.
Yeah. So the next question I have is, can you maybe give us maybe top 1, top 3 mistakes that you usually see founders do, or companies in general do, brands do, that hurts them really?
Yes. One of the biggest ones, most common ones, is it's kind of like this balance between what I call it a balance between sort of arrogance and humility, and with a touch of naivety. So basically, there's like, oh, we've produced the greatest thing in the world. Okay, it's great. It's better than anything else that's out there. It's this love affair with what they've made. And I am always I'm the guy that's brought in to actually say, by the way, I know this is your baby, and I'm here to tell you that is one ugly baby. That baby, if that baby were any uglier, I'd have to cover my eyes, because that's horrible. And they're like, and they're shocked, but at the same time they're a little relieved, because you can't be so in love with your own product or service that you do not also have the ability to look at it objectively and go, this is someplace we need to fix this. We need to correct this. We need to, so that's one thing. Big. You've got to be able to fall out of love as fast as you fell in love with that thing. And only for the purpose so that you are humble enough to go, okay, we need to fix this. We need to fix this. We need to fix this. So that's one thing. Another thing that is something that I learned from one of my longest running clients, who's built a number of very successful companies, including a unicorn, a $4.6 billion unicorn company, is that do not sell solutions. Help people manage problems. Help people manage the problem of something, rather than, okay, we have the solution to blah. Because people, they like the game of conquering and overcoming the whatever, whether it's sports, whether it's business goals, whether it's entertainment related, whether it's cooking or whatever. Take your pick. But the bottom line is, we enjoy that contest of coming out on top. We don't like when it's all gone, because now what are we going to do with all that free time? So it was an interesting little shift that I really learned. And it's like, do not sell solutions. Instead, offer a better way to manage the problem of, and you can fill in the blank. And that shift alone, that was responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in services sold. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in services sold. Those are a couple of big ones. I could talk about this for a long time, but those are a couple of big ones.
Yeah, no, this is a big one, and I like it. Instead of solution, focus on the problem, and people, I guess, resonate more with it because they have the problem, they need solution for it. But if you're talking about solution, they may say, there are multiple ways to solve it. So, yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right, how do you think branding will look, let's say, 10 years from now?
I think in 10 years, business in general is going to look a lot different. Obviously, I think AI is going to be changing just the way computers changed how we do business on a day-to-day business basis from pre-computers.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the way internet changed a lot how we do business. Now there's e-commerce and there's direct to consumer and all these various things. I would say there's going to be a very, very big shift. I think there's going to be a lot of things that will have previously been features and services that we would have paid for that will become part of the mainstream, that will just be built into our devices and the various things like that. I think that's one component. So there's going to be a lot more access freely to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen? That means there's going to be a hell of a lot more crap that's put out there because all of these incredible tools are going to be put in the hands of everyone, which means anybody, whether they have experience or judgment or taste or lack of taste, that there's going to be a lot of blech that's going to impact. It's going to impact entertainment. It's going to impact a lot of things. So I think that's one side of it. The other side of it, which I find equally interesting and very exciting, is there's going to be a new rise for some of the most human brands in the world. I love the fact that even today, if I have something where I need Apple Care, I can still call up Apple Care and I get something wonderful. I get a person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get an automated chat with I hate those chats. It's like, oh, here's a chat, and they're a waste of my time because I ask a question. It's like, here's a series of articles. I said, if I wanted a series of articles, I would have asked for a series of articles. I didn't ask for a series of articles. You gave me a series of articles. You just wasted 5 minutes of my time writing a very detailed question to get something automated that's not useful. So to me, this is going to be a great revolution. There's going to be incredibly human brands, and some of them are going to be better quality, and some of them are going to be real VIP, high ticket, premium brands where you're paying for that human interaction, and people are going to love it. People are going to crave it because they've had enough of automated this and automated that.
Yeah. I that's very funny. I had somebody not long ago, and he basically said that working or talking with humans will be kind of like a luxury today, right? And also that everybody will be sounding so the same because everybody got the same AI agent on the back end, basically telling everybody the same thing. It's almost gonna be like like repeat the same message, same thing, same menus. So that's funny. Yeah, I think all these predictions will come true because people are already realizing this with chatbots and like half-baked agents and stuff. Yeah. So if somebody's starting, let's say, working on a startup or have a product and they're working and building, what their first steps to better branding of their product?
Well, what they need to do is they need to be very objective, and they need to say, okay, how are we different? How are we different not only in what we are and what we do, but how are we different in the outcome that we're making possible? And is that a big enough difference for it to be valuable?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And here's something that I occasionally will talk about. I don't talk about a lot, but it's always very important. In my book, Brand Intervention, there was something that I introduced. I hadn't heard anybody talk about this. I talked about the 3 phases of branding.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is that most companies do only just 2 of them, but they think that that's all of them, and they're wrong. Mm-hmm. So that means they're literally using 66%, and they think it's 100%, and they're wrong. And here's how it comes. So the first phase of branding, pre-sales branding. Everyone does that. promotion, marketing, advertising, this, that, the other, whatever, appearances, but it's before the sale. Everyone does it, great. Then there's the second phase of branding. That is during the sale or during the service. During the sale might be, okay, you walk into a store or you go online and it's during the sale. What's happening? What are you learning? All of that. That's during. Or let's take a during the service, which is kind of like, let's say I'm going to go and get my hair done, right? Okay, so I'm going in and I haven't yet paid. I made my appointment, but I haven't yet paid. And so it's like during the service, it's like, am I being treated nice? Am I being offered coffee? It's during the service. Okay, and everyone does that. Well or not well, but everyone does that in some way. But the last one is the one that very few companies do. And this is the greatest opportunity because it is after the sale. It is post-sales branding. And what's amazing about it is it has the element of surprise. It has the element of delight. It has the element of it's not expected. And if there's something that I said the other day to someone that I was speaking to. It's the things that are known that we expect. Those are the things that will prevent customers from going away. But the things that surprise us and delight us, that's the stuff that's going to keep customers coming back. And that's the difference. It's like, you want to prevent customers from going away, so you want to deliver what's promised, and you want to be reliable and this, that, the other. But if you can inject that element of surprise and delight, and man, I had no idea. You obviously were paying attention because you gave me something that helps me so much. And oftentimes it's a little thing. It doesn't often take a lot of money. It might even just be paying attention a little more. But if you can do that, man, that post-sales branding will come to you. That will create greater loyalty, greater retention. It'll reduce the churn, the actual loss of customers. And man, you master that third phase of branding. Whoa, you will be unstoppable. It's just, it's contagious. And the great thing is there's no cure. There's no vaccine that can cure it. If you have that superpower, get out of town, man. Then you're on fire.
Yeah, I wonder what would be an example just for people to think. Is it like just a thank you note or some sort of gift?
The thing. I'll give you an example. So here, a thank you note. Everyone kind of does. Might do a thank you note. What can you do that's beyond the extraordinary, beyond the ordinary, that puts it into special, that it's intentional, that it's deliberate? So I'll give you an example. There's a restaurant in New York. They started implementing these small little changes. And here's two examples from that restaurant. One is they realized, and this is a high-priced restaurant. This restaurant, probably a dinner, depending on the size of your party, would probably run anywhere between, let's say, $400 and $4,000, depending on the size of your party. It's an expensive dinner. Good. Now, either that's going to be, when it got to the point of the bill being presented, that was kind of like sometimes if you were too quick, your guests who just enjoyed their meal might feel they're being rushed and leave. Or if you're a little too slow, they're like, aren't you paying attention? So what did they do? When the meal wrapped up, then they brought a shot of cognac with a bottle of cognac and said, by the way, this is on us. Thank you for joining us this evening. Let us know when you'd like the check. Now, let's see, what did it cost for that cognac? Probably cost anywhere between, I don't know, $2 and $5. You look at the price of that and that gesture, you now turned a transaction into, wow, do we feel like the most important people in the city? Look at this, right? Simple gesture, above and beyond. Now, that's one example. Another example they did was they found that a pretty good percentage of their of their guests were from out of town, and this restaurant was in New York City, and they had overheard. Oh, one of the people at this party, they mentioned we've never actually had a New York hot dog. One of the owners heard this. He ran out to a hot dog vendor, got a New York hot dog. Let's see, what would that have cost? It probably cost him $2.
Yeah.
Gets a New York hot dog, brings it back to the kitchen. They plate it nicely. They bring it out to them and say, by the way, here's a New York hot dog. What did that take? Probably took 5 minutes on the part of an employee. Took $2 or $3, I don't, whatever the cost of a New York hot dog is today.
Yeah.
And brought it out and converted. Wait a second. Are we them? That's like you just transformed the ordinary and expected into the extraordinary. So I would take anything like if we were to take a thank you note. How do you take a thank you note and do something remarkable? Is there something like there's one thing that I do, for example, when there are people that I've interacted with, met, this, that, the other, I will handwrite because I've done that for decades. So I'll do it because people are like, where'd this lettering come from? Well, I've done it. And so it'll be their name, beautifully done. It looks like a combination of a graffiti and a wall mural. It's like people are like, what is this box? Some people never even throw the box away.
Yeah.
And they get my book, right? And it's just, how do you take it that much farther? Because when you look at it, it probably will take you a matter of, even if it takes you 30 minutes, that 30 minutes separates you from everyone else. And the word of mouth and the reputation that you will have, that you go above and beyond, will precede you. And it's just those building blocks of where you become legendary.
Yeah. No, those are great examples and stories. I hope people will really take this. It's also a mentality, because usually it's like transaction, right? Like you said, it's like business done, customer gone, forget it, let's focus on the new customer. And people forget how to actually retain them. Everybody's talking about churn, how to retain customers and things like that. It's so fast, people forget this, that they're dealing with people, with emotions. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, awesome. All right. So at the end, I usually ask 3 questions about innovation. And so the first question is, how do you define innovation in a few words?
To me, innovation is any gesture or transformation that answers the question, why the hell not?
Okay, great. All right. So the second question is, throughout the human history, which innovation you think changed the world the most?
I would say, obviously electricity had an enormous impact as an innovation, but I'm going to go, because I love wonderful food, I'm going to go with fire, because it's like, I'm always fascinated by this. When you look at music and sound, there's so many notes in the musical scale. There are so many beats that one can have, but yet there are still thousands and thousands and thousands of songs that are all driven by the ingenuity that we each have. Similarly, with fire has been used to advance manufacturing. It has been used to advance a civilization in terms of hot, cold, and this, that, the other. But most importantly, just because I love a delicious meal, is like the same fire can in a single day make thousands of different tasting meals from the same ingredients, and we all enjoy them. And so even though it's our ingenuity that is probably the greatest of all innovations, it's like, I think fire is kind of an interesting one to entertain.
Yeah, and it's probably in the top 10 of human innovations, right? Somebody figured it out. Yeah, that's great. And the last question is, which technology that we use today do you think we will be laughing at 10 years from now?
Oh boy. As far as which technology, I would think this is an unusual. I did not preconsider. Here's one thing for those listening. Vit had asked me, David, I want to send you a question. I said, don't send me the questions. I don't want to see them beforehand. So I've not been asked this question before. But here's my answer. I think space. I don't mean outer space. I mean the use of space. I find space is an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we like small space. Sometimes we like enormous space. Sometimes we're brilliantly inventive when it comes to how can one break up a space in a different way than someone else would have. And as a result, new things can be done and achieved. And I think that space is kind of like one of those, it's like an open canvas. It's a blank canvas where I think a lot of magical things can occur. So that's my unexpected, unplanned answer.
Okay, I'll take it. Great. Okay, thank you, David, for your time today. Great learning from you. I hope we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
I hope this conversation gave you fresh ideas and inspiration. If so, please share it with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick comment. It helps more people discover this episode. See you next time.